Well, let's go to our lesson for today. Lesson 95. I am oneself, united with my Creator. Wow, I like this. This is a nice lesson. Today's idea accurately describes you as God created you. So you are created as the one sun, the beautiful Christ light. You are one within yourself and one with Him. Yours is the unity of all creation. The Christ in you is the unity with all the other seeming Christs in them. We are all one creation, the sonship. But guess what? The ego would tell you the opposite. The ego is in direct opposition to what God is stating, which, by the way, is a very high frequency statement. And it comes from high frequency thinking. I am oneself, united with my Creator. And from chapter 18, the Master says, you may be surprised to hear how different is reality from what you see. Very different. The body's eyes don't see, remember? They're delusional. They're hallucinating. The body's eyes see fear, darkness, pain, suffering. That's what the body's eyes see. You don't realize the magnitude of that one error. To see with the body's eyes, to be identified as the body. And remember, it's not that you don't have a body, you have a body, but you are not identified with it, meaning, this is me, my pretty hair, my pretty nails, my this, my that, I dress it, I did it. This is me, my personality. You're not identified with that. What you're saying is, I have a body, and it is simply a moving temple. It's a moving vehicle for the spirit of love to have its being in me. That's all it is. It's a communication device. It was so vast and so completely incredible that from it, a world of total unreality had to emerge. The ego. The minute you stop thinking with love, now you're in the body. You're identified with the body, and all the beliefs and all the concepts that you have going on in your own consciousness that you project onto others and onto the world. You're identified with it. You think it's finite, it's limited. So it's unreal, as Jesus says here, from it, a world of total unreality had to emerge, because as I think, I make manifest. So if I'm thinking loveless thoughts, then I'm going to see a loveless world. That would have to emerge from how I think. If I'm thinking loving thoughts, then a different world would emerge. I'm still in the world, but I'm not of the world, and I see things differently. What else could come of it? Its fragmented aspects are fearful enough. So we are in a spiritual recovery. We are fragmented, so we are recovering these fragmented aspects. That's fearful enough as you begin to look at them. We are exposing the fragments, looking at the darkness. But nothing you have seen begins to show you the enormity of the original error. To think loveless thoughts is the original error, which seem to cast you out of heaven. Seem to cast you out of heaven. Nothing could cast you out of heaven, because total oneness has no opposite. You are always one with God. I am oneself, united with my Creator. But when that seeming tiny mad idea entered into the mind, well, a whole world of nonsense emerged from that. So this seemed to cast you out of heaven, to shatter knowledge into meaningless bits of disunited perceptions. So your first problem is perceptual. I see fragmented bits. So I have a perceptual problem and forced you to make further substitutions. So I split off from the one. That could never happen. And then that split off became fragmented in so many other things. Unworthiness, anger, fear, hatred. I mean, the list goes on and on. So the ego then has its source in fragmentation and separation. That's the ego's source. Your perfect unity makes change in you impossible. So no matter what goes on in the world, nothing in you has ever changed. You are one with your Creator at all times. You do not accept this. That's the problem. And you fail to realize it must be so. So you haven't admitted it yet. That's what Jesus is saying. You're not accepting it. And you're failing to realize it must be so. Only because you believe that you have changed yourself already. So it's like, oh my God, I'm so bad. I've changed myself. I'm evil. Oh gosh, there's no help for me. Because I believe that I've usurped God. I've gone against God. And now there's no help for me. I believe that I have changed myself already. And that is a wrong-minded belief. Wrong-minded belief. Remember, the ego constantly seeks specialness. And the ego thinks it is God. And it does everything it can to make sure that you feel special, separate, in its delusional way of being. All right. Jesus says, you see yourself as a ridiculous parody on God's creation. So this is how we see ourselves. Unworthiness, okay? Weak. What areas in your life do you see yourself as weak? I can't do it. I'm weak. How about vicious? Vicious, attacking, defending. Ugly. I'm ugly. How many times a day, ladies, do you say you're ugly? My hair is ugly. This is ugly. That's ugly. Sinful. I'm bad. I'm just bad. Miserable, depressed, angry, and beset with pain. Physical pain, psychological pain, emotional pain, spiritual pain, pain. Such is your version of yourself. Even in religions, I know in I think it's Buddhism, where there's the different steps in your life. You live, and then you age, and then you get sick, and then you die. Like what? Who made that rule? God did not say you're born, and then you age, become all decrepit, and then you get sick, and then you die. God did not declare that. A man-made religion did. And you all bought it, hook, line, and sinker. So what do? We say, well, I'm already this age, now I'm aging. Oops, and sickness is right around the corner because that's what happens. No, that's a concept, it's a belief. It's not a truth. Why? Because it's not true for everyone. I know lots of people that climb the mountains in the Andes and the Rockies in Canada, and they're like 90 years old. They're not aging, they're living. They are alive, youthful with a vital spirit. They're not sick. So can you see how the ego trips you up? Don't buy into man-made concepts that come from religions. Take the best, leave the rest. That is not a best one to believe. God said, you are love, you are light. There is no sickness in you because God is health. And if I buy that, God is peace. And if I buy that, God is ageless, timeless, eternal being. Doesn't matter if I have wrinkles. That doesn't have anything to do with aging. It's about my spirit. The spirit doesn't age. The spirit is youthful and vitalized and filled with creative juice. So don't blame it on aging. It's you making a decision for wrong-mindedness. It's you making a decision not to be happy. Can you see that? Wow, that's what the Master's telling us here. So he says, you fail to realize it must be, oh, wait a minute. I'm here. Okay, so this is our version of ourself. A self divided into many warring parts. See, you're fragmented. We have to collect these fragmented pieces. It's darkness. The journey is from darkness to light. To know light, you have to expose darkness. The warring parts of yourself. Bring it to the light. So these warring parts that are separate from God, God does not know about anything over here in darkness. Light shines it away. But you think God knows that you are vicious, weak, ugly, stupid, miserable, depressed. God doesn't know anything. God said, you are my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. He declared that you are the glory. He doesn't know anything else. But it's you over here in your delusional mind believing that you're a nothing and a nobody. Depressed, angry, vicious, weak, and fed up with life. So, all of these, separate from God, and tenuously held together by its erratic and capricious maker, to which you pray, the ego. Oh, save me, help me. See, the ego would tell you it's God. Only the ego's God would tell you that you're going to be born, you're going to age, then you're going to get sick, and then you're going to die. That is the ego's God. That is not God. And we pray to the ego's God. Fix me, help me. Instead of declaring, dear God, I know I am what you made, and I am in a moment of forgetting. I need your help. Lift me higher. All right. It, this ego, does not hear your prayers, for it is deaf, because it's a nothing thing. It doesn't exist. So even though you're praying to this false God, it doesn't hear you because the ego doesn't even exist. It's an unreal thing. It doesn't see the oneness in you, for it is blind. It does not understand that you are a son of God, for it is senseless and understands nothing, because the ego in and of itself is a no thing. It does not exist. Wow, does that kind of make you happy? It doesn't exist. Oh my gosh. The Spirit's eyes and ears are internal. So I hear the voice of angels. I hear the voice for God. I see the light in me and I see the light in you. Everything changes. Jesus says in chapter 20, there is a stranger, the ego, in you. You, the Son of God. But there is a stranger in you, an imposter, who wandered carelessly into the home of truth and who will wander off. Ask not this transient stranger, what am I? Don't ask the ego, what am I? It's a transient stranger. It wandered in and it'll wander off. He is the only thing in all the universe that does not know. Yet it is he you ask. And it is to his answer that you would adjust. So, in other words, you're going to a nothing thing to ask a question, and he'll give you an answer that is coming from a nothing world. In other words, you're trying to fix a problem with something from this world of problems. You're trying to fix darkness with darkness. That's what you're doing. It's a hypnotic loop of insanity, asking a no thing for a solution to a no thing. This one wild thought, fierce in its arrogance, and yet so tiny and meaningless, it slips unnoticed through the universe of truth. And it becomes your guide. Oh, the ego is your guide. Oh God, God save us all. The ego is your guide. To it you turn to ask the meaning of the universe. And of the one blind thing in all the seeming universe of truth you ask, how shall I look upon the Son of God? Wow. We're asking the ego, the small, nothing self. Uh-oh. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Okay. Then Jesus says in chapter 17, think you that you can bring truth to fantasy and learn what truth means from the perspective of illusions? Jesus is saying, do you really think that you can bring illusions, this fantasy that you made, this unworthiness, all this stuff, do you really think that you can bring truth to that? This is the opposite of that. So he says, think that you can bring truth to fantasy and learn what truth means from the perspective of illusions? Truth has no meaning in illusion. Illusion is just that, illusion. And truth is true, and nothing else is true. The frame of reference for its truths, or for its meaning, which are truths, must be itself. When you try to bring truth to illusions, you're trying to make illusions real and keep them by justifying your belief in them. Like, for example, if I say to somebody who's a true bona fide Buddhist, nothing wrong with Buddhism, I myself am a true Buddhist, but I take the best and leave the rest from all religions. If I say to a true Buddhist that, did you know that it's a man-made concept, that you are born to age, to get sick, and to die? And that is a concept and it is not a truth. Well, they would have a heart attack because they would want that to be true because that's what they were told. And I want that to be true. That would completely rock their world. Or for a Christian to find out something about Jesus and all these nonsensical concepts that were, indoctrinated into us for lifetimes. None of it is true. There are no beliefs in heaven. God is one. You can't, in oneness, there cannot be two. Beliefs are outside of that. I am one self, united with my Creator. Jesus says, we'll attempt today to be aware only of what can hear and see and what makes perfect sense. The Spirit in me is the only thing that can hear and see. We will again direct our exercises toward reaching your one self, which is united with its Creator. The Christ in you, God's beloved Son, is united with its Creator in patience and in hope. We will try again today. So Jesus and the Holy Spirit represent right-mindedness. Buddha and Kuan Yin represent right-mindedness. Osiris and Isis represent right-mindedness. The use of the first 5 minutes of every waking hour for practicing the idea for the day has special advantages at the stage of learning in which you are at present. It is difficult at this point not to allow your mind to wander. And it's true, isn't it? These lessons are not about reading them and letting it go. It's about literally practicing what the Master is telling us to say, because we are going for a feeling experience of oneness, not an intellectual. It's not intellectual. It's not so you can go to a party and spew off. Oh, it's like, oh, they're so smart. They know all the lessons in A Course in Miracles. No, it's about you experiencing through practice the real meaning of these lessons. You are on the path of ascension. So Jesus says It is difficult at this point not to allow your mind to wander, and if it undertakes extended practice, you have surely realized this by now, and I'm sure you have. You do the lesson and you're like doing the lesson and you're thinking about, you got to wash your car and you're reading the lesson. I mean, like we're being asked to, Jesus kind of lets us off the hook. He's such a gentle teacher. He's saying, your mind will wander and that's okay. But he said, you have seen the extent of your lack of mental discipline. Have you seen the extent of your lack of mental discipline? Look at your life in all the areas where you lack discipline. How are we going to ascend? I mean, how are we going to wake up with full awareness that I am, oneself united with my Creator? We have to see the extent of the lack of mental discipline and of your need for mind training. Mind training. That's a recovery program, just like the 12 steps or whatever other recovery programs are out there. This is a recovery program. We have been on a hypnotic loop of insanity for lifetimes. It requires mind training. It is necessary that you be aware of this. See, Jesus, he's saying you got to be aware of that. Your mind is a mess. The mind you're thinking with is a mess. You need to be aware of this, for it is indeed a hindrance to your advance. Okay, thank you, Jesus. Then he says, frequent but shorter practice periods have other advantages for you at this time. In addition to recognizing your difficulties with sustained attention. Isn't he amazing, Jesus? He's like, I know, it's hard to have that sustained attention. I get it. You must also have noticed that unless you are reminded of your purpose frequently, you tend to forget about it for long periods of time. It's like if an addict doesn't go to a meeting or work their program, they could have a slip. They fall off the wagon. So when you, through your lack of mental discipline, forget God, well, it's going to be painful in your forgetting, but okay, maybe it's going to be painful enough that, bam, you remember again, and then you forget, you remember, forget, remember, until it's like, darn it, I remember all the time that I need to be aware of my mind's, temptation. I have awareness of that, so I choose differently. So then he says, you often fail to remember that the shorter applications of the idea for the day, and you have not yet formed the habit of using the idea as an automatic response to temptation. So we want to get to a point where these lessons, it's like, if you are tempted to be sucked out of oneness, somebody shows up, they do something, or you find yourself in an environment that's triggering you, or you're just, yeah, hi Sue, yeah. And we find ourselves being sucked into that vortex. That's the temptation. And those temptations happen all day long. And we want to get to a point where we're like, snap, I am oneself, united with my Creator. I'm onto you, ego. Back off. Don't you want to get to that point where that's what Jesus did? Jesus and Buddha and all the great masters, they're like, nope. Back up, buddy. I'm here and love's in front of me, so stand back. That's why these lessons are so wonderful and so important to practice. Structure then. Structure. See? Is necessary for you at this time. Plan to include frequent reminders of your goal and regular attempts to reach it. So we need structure. Regularity in terms of time is not the ideal requirement for the most beneficial form of practice at this time. So it means like, you get yourself into a routine the ego can trip you up on routines. That can be dangerous too. Where is it here? I think I wrote it somewhere. Oh yeah, from the manual, Jesus says this: routines as such are dangerous because they easily become gods in their own right, threatening the very goals for which they were set up. So we have to watch that rigidity, like that routine that, where was I here now? All right, regularity in terms of time is not the ideal requirement for the most beneficial form of practice in salvation. He goes on to say, it is advantageous, however, for those whose motivation is inconsistent. So if you are inconsistent in your motivation, it's like, you're not, you haven't chosen and decided and been committed to, I want God in my life more than anything else. My desire for God is greater than my desire for whatever. You're motivated by knowing that the goal is peace. So it's advantageous, however, for those whose motivation is inconsistent and who remain heavily defended against learning. So your resistance. Remember the 3 steps from AA. The first step, we admit. Are you resisting admitting? Are you in denial that you have a problem? Because if you're not in denial that you have a problem, then, you would want to do the work. You would be motivated to seek the goal, which is peace. All right. Jesus says, chapter 16, at the beginning, it is wise to think in terms of time. This is by no means the ultimate criterion, but at the outset, it is probably the simplest to observe. The saving of time is an essential early emphasis which, although it remains important throughout the learning process, becomes less and less emphasized. At the outset, we can safely say that time devoted to starting the day right does indeed save time. Wow. Jesus then says, we will therefore keep to the 5 minutes an hour practice periods for a while and urge you to omit as few as possible. Using the first 5 minutes of the hour will be particularly helpful since it imposes firmer structure. Wow, the master is amazing. Don't you want to follow a guy who got off the cross of suffering? He resurrected. He exposed the darkness and he had a plan. And it's set out for us 365 days, 1 day at a time in mind training, how he did it. I'm going to follow that guy. Do not, however, use your lapses from the schedule as an excuse not to return to it again as soon as you can. And the ego's good. It's like, well, you already messed it up for the day, so who cares? It's already done. Like, forget it. Do you ever do that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. There may well be a temptation to regard the day as lost. See? Because you've already failed to do what is required. That's the ego, man. It is a monkey mind. This should, however, merely be recognized as what it is. A refusal. Let's just call it like it is. It's a refusal to let your mistake be corrected. And an unwillingness to try again. I love Jesus. He's being very forthright. He's very cutting through the chase. He's saying, just tell the truth. You're refusing to let your mistake be corrected. He's not saying, well, it's okay, you just missed it for 2 minutes and never mind, you can go. He's saying, let's look at it as it is. It's your refusal. You are denying. You are not wanting to have that mistake corrected. Let's just be honest here. And then he said, and an unwillingness to try again. Wow. You see, guilt is the thing that's in the mind of the separate self. And as long as you have guilt in the mind, you will be operating from the ego. Jesus says from chapter 19, sin is not an error, for sin entails an arrogance, comes from the ego, which the idea of error lacks. To sin would be to violate reality and to succeed. Sin is the proclamation that attack is real and guilt is justified. That's our religious definition of sin. You're guilty and you need to be punished. It assumes the Son of God is guilty and thus has succeeded in losing his innocence. You could never lose your innocence. But that's what the ego would have you believe. And making himself what God created not. God did not create the ego. You made it by believing in it. The ego brings sin to fear, demanding punishment. Yet punishment is but another form of guilt's protection. See, we're always hiding our guilt. And the world will mirror your guilt. Excuse me. Excuse me. So, when you have guilt, you'll project it. And then what does guilt do? It seeks punishment. And so people come back and they treat you lousy and you want to blame them, but you sent it out from your consciousness. It's the unconscious guilt in the mind projected onto the world, reflected back. Jesus says, punishment is always the great preserver of sin. And treating it with respect and honoring its enormity. How many times have you said they deserve it? That's your belief in sin and punishment. Even the ones that are in jail, all the people, they're just mirrors. And every time you say they deserve it, they deserve what they got, that's their karma. What you're saying is, I'm a sinner and I deserve punishment. So be it. That's really what you're saying. What must be punished must be true. The ego believes in everything it makes. And so you think that sin is real. And so therefore, the sinner deserves punishment. The sin is real, and the punishment is what is deserved. Then Jesus goes on to say, I got to say this one again because this is so good. This is from the text again, from I think chapter 27. Jesus says, into eternity, you are the eternal Son of God. Where all is one, I am oneself, united with my Creator. Well, there crept a tiny, mad idea, at which the Son of God remembered not to laugh. Taking life too seriously? Feeling a little unworthy? The Son of God forgot to laugh. The tiny, mad idea. In his forgetting, did the thought become a serious idea? And possible of both accomplishment and real effects. Together, me and Jesus, me and Buddha, me and Sai Baba, me and Mother Mary. Well, we can just laugh them both away. And understand that time cannot intrude upon eternity. That timeline you find yourself on is the ego's world. You live in the past, you project the future, you're on the timeline, and that timeline can never intrude upon eternity. I am the eternal Son of God. It's a joke to think that time can come to circumvent eternity. It's a joke. Jesus is laughing. I can feel him. It's hilarious. Which means there is no time. There is no time because the ego does not exist. It is an unreal thing. So everything the ego would have you believe does not exist either, which includes time. So if you let your past or what you said or thought or did get into you now? You see what Jesus is saying? It's a joke. It cannot intrude upon the eternal Son of God. It never happened. Okay. All right. Jesus says, you but mistake interpretation for the truth. You're interpreting everything you see. Well, I think they need to, they need to be punished. Did you see what they did? You're misinterpreting everything for truth, and you are wrong. Oh, Jesus is not pulling any punches here. You're wrong about what you're interpreting. You're only seeing your own defects of character in other people, and then you're reacting to it, but you are wrong. But a mistake is not a sin, nor has reality been taken from its throne by your mistakes. Reality wears the royal crown. You sit on the throne at the right-hand side of the Father. That is reality. And that's not going to be influenced in any way, shape, or form by your mistakes. God reigns forever, and his laws alone prevail upon you and upon the world. God's truth prevails. I don't care what this world is looking like. I don't care what your life has been, what you've gone through. Truth prevails. His love remains the only thing there is. Fear, ego, time is an illusion. For you are like him, the eternal, everything God's Son. So the Holy Spirit is not delayed in her teaching by your mistakes. Nope, she's sharp. Bam, she's on it. She can be held back by only your unwillingness to let them go. Are you willing to let unworthiness go? Are you willing to finally let it all go? Yep. Let us therefore be determined, particularly for the next week or so. Oh, good, until next week when we meet again. To be willing to forgive ourselves for our lapses in diligence and our failures to follow the instructions for practicing the day's idea. This tolerance for weakness will enable us to overlook it, rather than give it power to delay our learning. Aw, that's so sweet. That is so sweet. Jesus says if we give it power to do this, meaning to delay our learning, we are regarding it as strength and are confusing strength with weakness. And again, Jesus says it's a joke to think that time can come to circumvent eternity, which means there is no time. Oh, that really helps. And then he says, when you fail to comply with the requirements of this course, you've merely made a mistake. It can be corrected. You're not a sinner, you're not bad. You made a mistake, it can be corrected. And this calls for correction and for nothing else. To allow a mistake to continue is to make additional mistakes. So what he's really saying is, are you committed to the ascension? Are you committed to single eye seeing? If you fall off the wagon, meaning you forget to do a lesson or you do whatever it is, you're not applying it, you're not going for the felt experience of oneness. He says, you've made a mistake, but don't keep adding to it, because that's just making additional mistakes based on the first, and then you keep reinforcing it. It is this process that must be laid aside, for it is but another way in which you would defend illusions against the truth. See, the ego doesn't want you to get back on the wagon. It's like if you're in an addiction recovery program and you have a slip, the ego does not want you to get back on the wagon. It wants you to stay in the muck. Let all these errors go by recognizing them for what they are. They are attempts to keep you unaware that you are oneself, united with your Creator, at one with every aspect of creation, and limitless in power and peace. This is the truth, and nothing else is true. Wow. Today we will affirm this truth again and try to reach the place in you in which there is no doubt that only this is true. I want to live there. I just want to live there because that's where peace is. It's nowhere else, not out here. Begin the practice periods today with this assurance. Offer to your mind with all the certainty that you can give. I am oneself, united with my Creator, at one with every aspect of creation, and limitless in power and in peace. Then close your eyes and tell yourself again, slowly and thoughtfully, attempting to allow the meaning of the words to sink deeply inward to your mind, replacing false ideas. I am oneself. I am oneself. You are oneself, united and secure in light and joy and peace. You are God's Son, oneself, with one Creator and one goal. And that goal is to bring awareness of this oneness to all minds. You are a light worker. You are a miracle worker. And your goal is to bring this awareness of oneness to all minds by demonstrating that you are oneself. May you extend the allness and the unity of God. You are oneself, complete and healed and whole, with power to lift the veil of darkness from the world. That's how powerful you are. And let the light in you come through to teach the world the truth about yourself. You can only do that if you are at one with yourself, your higher self, united with your Creator. You are oneself, in perfect harmony with all there is and all that there will be. You are oneself, the Holy Son of God, united with your brothers in that self, united with your Father in His will. Feel this one self in you and let it shine away all your illusions and your doubts. This is yourself, the Son of God Himself, sinless as its Creator, and His strength within you and His love forever yours. You are one self, and it is given you to feel this self within you and to cast all your illusions out of the one mind that is the self and the holy truth in you. Don't forget today. Do not forget. We need your help. Your little part in bringing happiness to all the world. You are here to bring happiness to all the world. And heaven looks to you in confidence that you will try today. Share then. It's surely for it is yours. Be vigilant. Do not forget today. Throughout the day, do not forget your goal. Repeat today's idea as frequently as possible and understand each time you do so, someone hears the voice of hope. Someone. There are so many people out there that need hope. The sonship is quivering with a longing for love. And as you stand in your glory as the one Son, you become a sun ray of hope that goes out into the sonship and reaches the heart of so many people. The stirring of the truth within his mind, the gentle rustling of the wings of peace. Your own acknowledgement that you are one self, united with your Father, is a call to all the world to be at one with you. To everyone you meet today, be sure to give the promise of today's idea and tell him, you are one self with me. United with our Creator in this self. I honor you because of what I am and what He is, who loves us both as one.